Okay, well, let's get this started. When I heard it was Toolbox, the feet called me because he wasn't going to be able to be here and said, would you mind standing in and interviewing Clayton? I said, well, it's a brutal duty, but yeah, I think I wouldn't mind doing that. And anyway, he said it was Toolbox. And I thought, hell, I know all about toolboxes. I had collision repair centers all over, town and everything. This is Snap-on, or is it, what's the, what kind of toolbox is it? And I did a little bit of reading and figured out what was going on there. Let me tell you something, though, today. And it does, I will give you a little parallel here. In my business, everybody had toolboxes. The key was whether or not the guy knew how to use what was inside the toolboxes and he could use the tools. You're not going to have, I guarantee you, this guy knows how to use the tools in his toolbox, both professionally and for the Lord. And so we're going to delve into that a little bit. And Clayton just loves talking about himself, so we're going to try to get over that hurdle. But Clayton, thank you for being here today. Let's start off with some baseball. Would you share some of your favorite moments, games, teammates, fun stories over your career that are burned into your memory? And do not leave out wearing the wrong jersey, okay?
All right, I got it. Thank you guys for having me. This is such a cool experience for me to be in this room with a lot of men and women that have kind of shaped my childhood too, as not only a dad, a baseball player, but as a follower of Christ. So thank you guys for all the men in this room that have done that for me. And it's pretty surreal that you guys want me to talk at this thing. I don't really know if I'm going to be able to add too much, but I can talk a little baseball and talk a little Jesus as best I can. So I don't even know what you asked me. Did you ask me baseball stuff?
Yeah, let's just do some baseball stuff.
Right.
Some of your favorite, times, games, players, fun stories.
So
stupid stuff you did. I mean, stuff that you did.
I've got so many of those, but I think my first moment that is like burned in my memory was draft day. So I got drafted out of high school in 2006, and I lived with my mom in this little house in the Park Cities on Stanford, and we were this was before like they did all the TV stuff and everything. I sound old and I'm getting there, but they do it all online. And so I was waiting for this thing. My mom had to wake me up. The draft was starting, and my name gets called by the Dodgers like the pick before. And they say, hey, you have to agree to this deal right now or we're not going to draft you. And it's like a tactic to get you to not have to negotiate. And I panic. They say, hey, we got to fax you something to sign this. And my mom and I are like, we don't have a fax machine. And they're like, well, you need to find one or we're not going to draft you. So I sprint over to my neighbor's house in my, basically just my shorts, just my pajamas, run over there. And they print off this fax machine saying, you agree. It's completely illegal. You can't do this. The team was trying to just milk me. But they did it, and I signed it. And within 30 seconds, I wasn't going to go to college and was going to go play for the Dodgers. So that was just a pretty surreal moment about how it all got started. And man, talk about God's timing in your life. In high school for me, so fortunate to get to go to Highland Park and get to be a part of the sports programs there. And my friends that I have today are still some of my best friends that I've had since high school, and a lot of their dads are here today too. It's just an amazing thing to be able to grow up here. But my mom did everything she could to keep us in the school district. Obviously, it's not an easy thing financially to stay in Highland Park, and really worried about what college was going to look like for myself as far as how are we going to be able to afford to do college, even with a baseball scholarship and all these things. And I had a lot of anxiety and worry as a senior, just trying to figure out what was going to happen. And just to see God's providence in my life at that moment and carry on to the rest of my life that was one of my bigger moments in my life, was to see that, God's got this. I don't have to worry about this. God's going to take care of it. He gave me this gift of baseball, and I'm going to be able to do a lot of things and be able to provide for my family that way. So just a really cool moment for me in that, to see all the way starting my senior year in high school, moving forward, that God had a plan with this baseball thing that I didn't really know yet what it was. And it was pretty special. And then moving on into my debut, I got to make my debut in 2008. I was 20 years old. I didn't know what was going on. I probably shouldn't have made my debut, honestly. It was just a matter of circumstance. And I was sitting there in Zebulon, North Carolina. And has anybody been to Zebulon? I wouldn't recommend it if you haven't. But it wasn't great. We were playing the Mudcats, and I was pitching. And they took me out after one inning and sent me into the clubhouse. And I was like, I screwed up. I did something wrong. I'm going down or something, and had no thought in my head that I was going to get called up. And they do the whole thing. I'm sure you've seen the videos of guys getting called up and what they do. And so I get called in the manager's office. They call the general manager. They tell me, hey, you're getting called up. You're pitching on Sunday. This is Friday. You're pitching on Sunday. Don't tell anybody. We haven't released the guy that there's going to get released in order for you to get there. And so naturally, I run outside. I call my girlfriend at the time. I call my family that, hey, you got to get to LA. Don't tell anybody though. And so we get out there, and I fly to LA that Saturday and get to watch the game. And you guys, some of you are old enough to know Jason Schmidt. He pitched for the Giants for a long time, and he had a lot of shoulder history. His shoulder was mangled by the time he got to the Dodgers, but he was still there. He was like the class clown, and my locker was next to him. And so they let me get there Saturday night to kind of watch the first game before I pitched on Sunday. And this is what I remember more than anything than my debut was I reach into my locker to put on my jersey to go out for the national anthem, to stand out there with your team. And that's a big deal. You get to see the stadium for the first time filled. You get to be out there with those guys. And I reach in and I grab Jason Schmidt's jersey. And I put it on, and he sees this whole thing unfold, and he just loves it. And so he goes to the camera guy, and he says, hey, make sure you get this guy on the Jumbotron. So I go out there, and I put my jersey on, and I got a big Schmidt jersey on the back, and that's my first Dodger Stadium experience, the national anthem. So that was great. I had a lot to thank for that. So that was pretty special. You want me to keep going, or I got more?
Yeah, just keep going.
Right.
That's just you're doing great.
And then I've been fortunate enough to be able to play for a while now with the same team, and I've gotten to do a lot of things individually, but by far the best experience in my baseball career was winning the World Series. As a competitor, I don't think it's any different than in the business world and the sports world. We're all trying to compete for something, right? Whether it's the best deal, whether it's the best job, whether it's winning something, whatever it is. And so for me, I've always been motivated by trying to win the game. Like the individual stuff I've always cared less about. And that's what's so great about playing on a team. And I think that's what God calls us to do too is, my favorite Bible verse is work at it with all your heart as you're working for the Lord, not for men in Colossians. And that's just always resonated with me is that it's not an individual thing when you're on a team. And that's some of the hardest things I've had to understand is that we're all there on the Dodgers, but everybody has all their individual circumstances that they're trying to do, whether it's provide for your family, whether it's just make the team, whether it's just try to make the all-star team, whatever it is, there's so many things that so many guys are motivated by. And that's one of the hardest things for me to see is from a rookie to a veteran, trying to figure out how to get everybody motivated by the same thing. And I'm sure that's no different in business too. How to get your team, how to get people that you are working with every day to be on the same page as what you're trying to do. And it's a fun thing for me to think about. It's a fun thing as a competitor to try to get everybody on the same page. And the one conclusion that I've come to in 15 years is that it's almost impossible. But the one thing that I will say that always works is telling them that winning the game will take care of everything else. And so winning the game, working to win that game will take care of your batting average. If you do what you can to win that game, it'll take care of your stats. It'll take care of your numbers. If you focus so much on getting a hit, you're probably not going to get a hit. But if you focus on winning the game and doing what you have to do to move that runner over, or not to get too baseball-y, but lay down a bunt or whatever it is, it'll affect you in a good way for your performance. And the culmination of that for me was winning the World Series. And I had been in the playoffs a number of times, failed a number of times, which is never easy. Never failing in business or life is never easy. And trying to go over that, overcome that, overcome that over and over again to be able to make it to the World Series and win that. Everybody's like, were you so happy? Were you just full of joy? No, I was just relieved. I was so relieved to finally have done that and be able to say that I was a World Series champion for the first time. And that was my greatest moment, without a doubt, on the baseball field.
Very good, very good. Let me ask you a question. You just love pitching in Colorado, don't you?
Have you guys been to Colorado? Anybody at Coors Field? Yeah, Alan likes this because he has a house up there, so he loves making fun of me. He's always up there watching. But it's like pitching on the moon, basically. I mean, you're in Colorado, and you feel like it's a pop fly to center field, and it goes over the fence. And, talk about being a competitor. You don't ever want to say something like is mentally defeating before you go into it. But I'm pretty mentally defeated by the time I go out there. Don't tell anybody that. But it's just like, it's tough to wrap your head around going out there and feel like you have your good stuff, you're pitched and you feel good, and you look up and you've given up 5 runs, and you're like, man, I thought I pitched good tonight, And the only saving grace is that the Rockies stink and we have a chance, so that's good.
So let me ask you, when did you set your goal to ultimately, play baseball at the highest level? I mean, kind of give us a picture of what that looked like in your growing up. I know Derry Stone. Derry's here. Did Derry make it here today? I think he was going to be here. But anyway, he was one of your early coaches or whatever.
Yeah,
playing ball
Mr.
and all
Stone
that,
was the best. No, I was like every kid. I played a lot of sports growing up, and by the way, that's kind of nuts as dads. I have kids now, and they're playing sports, and Saturdays are crazy. So thank you, all the dads out there that are doing that. It's pretty special to see, but it's also kind of nuts every weekend. So, but I kind of did all the things growing up, and I never had the goal to make it to the major leagues. Never. I just wanted to keep going to that next level. And my sophomore, junior year of high school, I was like, okay, I might be fortunate enough to get to do this in college, and had a few offers, and I committed to Texas A&M just because of my wife. I didn't really know why. I just said, oh yeah, sure, I'll go there. She was my girlfriend at the time, and she was going there, so I was like, oh, that sounds good. So I committed there, and probably should have put a little more thought into it, but I didn't. And that's just God in your life, right? You don't have to end up going. So it was great, but. I don't even remember the question. What you asked me?
When you set your goal?
Oh, so that goes back to the whole team aspect. I've never been a guy to make individual goals. I feel like that takes away from the task at hand. There's things you want to achieve, and but at the end of the day, my goal is to win every start I pitch, just to win every start. And that looks different for everybody, and you might not pitch well some days and you might win, but ultimately if you go out there every fifth day and you win the game, you did your job and you accomplish your goals. And I've never been a great guy at looking into the future. I kind of like doing it day by day, and that really helps me, especially with the baseball season. It's a lot of games. It's a lot of days on the road. It's a lot of the same people over and over again. So to be able to set your goal is just to win the next game is how I've kind of accomplished it.
Very good. Well, let's shift gears a little bit and maybe kind of delve a little bit more into what this group's about and all. But I wanted to start off by reading a quote out of the Dallas Morning News, front page article in the Sunday Morning News on November the 29th, 2020. Front page below the crease, though. I don't know what happened there, okay? I don't know who was in charge of that. But the quote is, "But if you really want to know about Kershaw's legacy, you are better off starting here, with family and children, or as Kershaw always refers to them, kiddos. It could be on his own street, or just as likely in the corners of the world, like Zambia and the Dominican Republic, and in the neglected areas of his hometown, Dallas, and his adopted city, Los Angeles." So kind of give us a little bit of a overview here from the standpoint of UNL and having such an incredible marriage and partnerships and all you do, both in marriage and ministry. And, Toolbox has the tagline, helping men go beyond success to significance. I think you are pretty good at that. You'll be able to kind of walk us through from the standpoint of what you've done, and, including like touching on ping pong, the rustic, serving in Africa, LA, Dallas. Just kind of give us a walkthrough of what you've kind of said, okay, I'm playing baseball, but I think the good Lord and Jesus want me doing some other things. So why don't you kind of give us a picture of what that looks like?
Yeah, so I got married in 2010, so 2 years into my career, and I had dated my wife for a long time, all the way through high school and in college. And when I started playing professionally, it was kind of like, this is what you've always wanted to do. This is baseball, but didn't really understand how that was going to affect your faith. Obviously, I was going to be a Christian man in a baseball locker room, which is a pretty special thing to be able to do, and try to set that example that way. But as far as what it actually looked like in my life to have this baseball thing as a platform, I didn't have any idea, and I don't think I really ever thought about it. And 3 weeks after we got married, I'm in Africa with my wife, who had been going through college, and it was just part of the marriage. It was something that she was on her heart from an early age, and I was with her over there, and it just changes you. I just felt something in me as well, like, this is, we can do something here, we can help. And I just kind of felt moved because she had this calling in her heart, and that's almost where our passions collided, and we created Kershaw's Challenge, our nonprofit. And, we've been able to raise a lot of money and do a lot of different things. But I think the biggest thing that I can say is that, like, when I walk into a room or when I meet somebody for the first time, I'm not kidding you when I say 3 out of the 4 questions are about Kershaw's Challenge and about what God is doing with this nonprofit as opposed to baseball. And that is what God meant for baseball for me. I know that now 100% about all the people that we can impact because he gave me the gift to be able to throw a baseball okay. and that's pretty cool.
Tell us about Hope.
Yeah, so before I got married, Ellen had gone to Africa, and she met this little girl named Hope. And Hope was 9 years old at the time. She was a double orphan, HIV positive, and just needed a chance, needed life. And Ellen called me from Africa, which was challenging, not a cheap phone call, obviously. I was like, what are we doing? Why are you calling me right now? And she says, this little girl, Hope, needs help. We need to do something. We got to figure this out. And we started trying to do it through a food program, just to take care of her, just to do what we could to get her the basic needs met. But Hope is where Kershaw's Challenge started. And it's pretty cool to say that Hope has now graduated high school. She's almost 20 years old. She's going into the real world as a Christian woman in Africa, looking to find her calling. And she was one of a number of girls and boys that have moved into these homes that we were able to create through Rise Africa, one of our beneficiaries. And like I said, just God's timing and everything is just amazing to see that the gift of baseball can create something, an ocean away for this little girl named Hope that might not have had it because of that.
So what does Africa look like now? I mean, you got a school. I mean, what else transpired there?
Yeah, well, Kershaw's Challenge is obviously our nonprofit. We have a bunch of different beneficiaries, and you mentioned we had the Rustic event last month, and Darius Rucker got to play. It was a great time. And then we do a ping pong event, which is a great time too, and we raise all this money, and it's just so fun to be able to see the impact through different people. And then Arise Africa is one of our beneficiaries, and we've been able to build 2 homes now, and there's a school and the feeding program, and someday when my kids can handle an 18-hour flight, we're going to get back over there, and we're going to do a lot more, but it's pretty special right now.
And you're 35 now?
No, 34.
34. I don't mean to push it. I think you're a half. I think you're more closer to 35 than 34. But anyway, my calculations and what's been published. I'm not trying to throw something out there that's not right or whatever. But probably you're up to between $15 and $20 million now that you've raised for your charity.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, pretty impressive. 35. So what? When he talks about ping pong, his ping pong tournament is on the infield of Dodger Stadium. It's all set up with ping pong tables, and he's got all these LA folks that my wife would recognize their names. I don't really know who most of them are, but anyway, it's quite a to-do. And anyway, it's very impressive, very impressive. Speaking of significance, how about your C-suite? You've got Callie, Charlie, Cooper, and Chance. Not sure how the C's came in, but anyway, I would like to hear about maybe how the C's came in. But serving and nurturing them, including cafeteria duty at the elementary, and how you want them outside enjoying God's creation and playing something other than electronic games or TV or whatever. Why don't you kind of touch on that from the standpoint of being the dad and this wonderful, wonderful family that you've got?
Well, I think, I'm so thankful for my family, but what I would want to say is that to the men in this room, your impact on your kids is what I remember. So for a lot of the dads in here growing up, it's just really special to see what great parents that y'all were. And to my friends in the room, to the younger crowd, to the parents that y'all are now, it's just a really special thing. My dad was around for my first 10 years or so, and then my parents got divorced, and my mom kind of raised me after that. But those first 10 years, I have so many great memories. It was so special that my dad would play catch with me, play basketball with me, do all these things. And after that, I was kind of raised by, obviously my mom, but I was around my friends so much. I don't think there's a weekend that I didn't spend the night out with some of my friends or doing something. And I was always at Ellen's house with Jim and Leslie, and they fed me so many meals. I can't believe they still fed me. But just to be able to see their impact on their kids and to see their kids' impact on their kids is, honestly, I think there's not a greater way to see Jesus through somebody is to see how they are as a dad or a mom. And so I think I've been formed as a dad by so many different people, including you, Alan, including all the other people in this room, to have an idea of what it looks like to be a dad. And there's nothing better. It's so great.
So I think this season is going to be an interesting one. You're signed back up with the Dodgers and going to be there at least for another year. What do you look at you have a number in mind from the standpoint of how long you want to pitch, or is it kind of up to the Lord as to how He allows your body to react to being in that kind of a level of athletics?
Yeah, so I played catch today for the first time this off season, and it still worked a little bit. So I'm going to try and go for another year, and it hurt, but I think it'll get better. And I love baseball, and I have no idea, to answer your question. Thankfully Ellen was on board, and the kids love going out there and traveling. And as my kids get older, my oldest Callie's in second grade, and my next one is Charlie in kindergarten, and I got 2 babies. But school is becoming more important. They like their school, they like their activities, and just trying to weigh that. I think that's the biggest thing, is trying to weigh, and that's probably no different in business, trying to figure out how to manage your time. Because time is the most valuable thing we all have. Time is the most valuable thing, more than anything, about how we spend it, about how we use it to further the kingdom, how to further our family. And so I'm just trying to figure that out. But I think right now God has me in LA for another year. I know that because I'm doing it. So I'm going back out there. But then after that, I have no idea. And it's exciting to think about the next chapter, about what that looks like as a retired guy that's not 40 yet, and try to figure that out. And I'm excited to be, the coach of a lot of basketball teams. Basketball is the best, by the way, of all little kid sports. Like, just watching those kids play basketball is the best. But anyway, I don't know, Alan. You have any suggestions? You got anything for me?
Hey, sounds good to me. As long as you want to do it and you feel good, go for it, man. I mean, that's great. But your roles kind of changed with the Dodgers. You start out with wearing the wrong jersey, and now all of a sudden, now you're the senior statesman, so to speak. People really look to you, and as I look, you have to deal with the business of baseball, and that you're going to have Justin Turner and others who aren't going to be there this year. Apparently, are not going to be there this year unless something comes up or whatever. How does that aspect work into team building with you, and how do you, as a leader and a man of God, go about that, and what do you look at as being your responsibilities from that standpoint?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I think every year our team changes, and every year we have different guys coming in and coming out, and but that doesn't change our mission as disciples. We're all disciples, and I'm not as educated on the Bible as I should be, and sometimes I don't feel equipped to talk to these guys about Jesus, but we're all called to do it in whatever sphere of influence we have. And so that's what I try to do. And I love being from this neighborhood so much. It's so special, and there's so many great things I love. But one of the great things about going to LA is that we have people from all over the world on our team that might have never heard of Jesus before, that might know Jesus, but just think if you're a good person, you're going to go to heaven, and all these different things. And so I get to come in, and I will say the biggest thing is just to be there by your actions is better than anything. And then guys start asking questions, and we all have different spiritual gifts. And like Robbie's here. Robbie's my brother. He's a pastor. He knows the Bible backwards and forwards. And I try to, but I'm not ever going to be to that level. But what I try to do is just be what Jesus wants me to be, is to be a competitor on the field and do it in a way that glorifies Him. And I think guys resonate with that, and I think guys start asking questions about it. And I've seen some really cool things through teammates that might not have come to Jesus on that moment. That's only on God's timing, but will at least ask me, like, why the heck are you doing that? Or why are you doing this? Or, what does it mean to follow Jesus? I thought that can't be true, right? And different things like that. And it's just a really fun thing to do, to be able to be a part of it, and to be able to be, in Jesus's corner on that baseball field, because there's a lot of guys that aren't, and maybe they're not against it, but they just don't know anything about it. And I think that's a pretty cool place to be.
Well, I think the Dodgers are very, very fortunate to have you, and I think they're very fortunate to have you back again. I think they're going to want to have you there as long as you possibly can, look and be at the level that you want to be at. And I think Jesus is probably pretty happy with you too. And so keep that up. We're going to open it up for a couple of minutes here. There's a few of you I know I'm not going to call on for questions because I know you too well. But those of you who I don't know, probably you have a better shot at asking a question. If you've got questions, why don't you raise your hand? I'm going to let Clayton call on you. And
so last time we did questions, Alan, I spoke at the Salesmanship Club, and Mark Dickinson's here. His twin boys are some of my best friends, and we had this game. We had anytime push-ups, right? So at any moment throughout the day, if like we lose a bet, instead of betting money or whatever, we bet anytime push-ups. And so that means I could call one of these guys in one of their business meetings, and they have to answer and do a push-up in the middle of the meeting, or they have to do whatever it may be. And so sure enough, John Dickinson stands up, and I'm on stage, and he says, you need to do your push-ups. And so I had to sit up here and do the push-ups in the middle of the salesmanship club. So all to say, as long as nobody has any anytime push-ups on me, I think we're in a good spot.
We're not going to select the Dickinsons win this or whatever. You got a question back in the back, I think.
How has working through forgiving or just what you've had to do with Houston? We've got a lot of Houston, Dallas people here. Just how's that impacted your faith and your spiritually there?
Still working through it, Rob. No, he asked me about the Astros, and obviously they won the World Series. And in 2017 we played against them in the World Series, and they cheated basically, and it was a tough. That's a fact. That's not funny. That's a fact. But
he's not bitter.
Yeah. So it is really hard when you work that hard for something, and to get to that moment and kind of have it not taken from you. But there was a lot of things in those games that could have gone differently necessarily, and so. Honestly, I still have a little, PTSD from it, Rob. It's not easy to talk about. It's not fun to be a part of, but at the same time, I think we've kind of moved on as a team. We've had some opportunities since then. We've gotten to win in a World Series too, which has been great. And I'll just say I haven't had any conversations. I think honestly, that's what I would want to do, is to be able to talk to those guys that were there and just ask them what happened, how did it happen, and I've never gotten that opportunity, and maybe it'll happen someday, but. Until then, I'm at peace with it. I wouldn't say I'm good with it, but I'm at peace with it. Is that a Christian thing to say? I don't know, but that's where I'm at. So
that's about as pinned down as I've ever seen him in a question or not. Tom, we got 2 or 3 more minutes. Okay, some other questions?
Must have had a lot of Houston people here. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So you and Matt Stafford grew up together. Did y'all ever say, hey, you're going to go do this, I'm going to go do this, and you was in your dreams and just fun on the field, or?
Yeah, so he asked me about Matthew Stafford, and Matthew and I grew up together. We really did. Basically all the way through elementary school, and even in high school too. We were part of 2 different circles or whatever it is, but Matthew's great. I've always loved watching Matthew play. I have a lot of respect for Matthew and what he's been able to do, and I will say this, Matthew was a way better baseball player than I was a football player. I think he could have gone and played definitely in college. He was a great shortstop, and now that he's in LA, we've texted a few times, and it's fun to see him win a Super Bowl too after all that he's been through in Detroit. And it is a lot of fun, having people from this neighborhood succeed in sports and be able to watch it, and having Scotty Scheffler as well from around here be able to do that. And it's just a testament to the community, I think, more than anything, and how special it is to be a part of it here. And I'll say Matthew's great. Matthew, every time he would come to our house, so me and my friend Josh, we lived on the same block in elementary school, and Matthew would come over a lot, and we'd play tennis ball, baseball, we'd play hallway hockey, we'd play, hide and seek on the top of the duplexes houses behind our house, and a lot of things. And without fail, I don't think Matthew would feel bad me telling me this, but maybe don't tell him if you see him, but he would get hurt every single time he was at our house. Every single time. I think he left with probably 3 concussions, and, broken fingers, or, just scraped up knees or whatever it was. And all to say, he's tough, and I think we have something to do with it, so it feels good.
Did I remember right? Were you playing center?
Yeah, freshman year I was center.
So you had a really personal relationship with Matthew then.
We were all shotgun, thanks, but yeah, we were.
You weren't going for any quarterback sneaks, huh? Okay, all right.
While you're signed for 23 with the Dodgers, are you familiar with how short the commute is from here to Arlington?
Yeah, he asked me about the Rangers, and they just signed Jacob deGrom, who's awesome. One of my favorites. He's great. He's going to be great. I think he's the best one in the game if he stays healthy. I think he's the best one that we have going right now. And then Chris Young is obviously a Highland Park alum as well, and a neighbor of mine. I see him at Higher Elementary picking up his kid every day too. So I'm very familiar with the Rangers. Thank you. And I don't know what's going to happen next year, but we're excited to go back to LA for one more. We'll give it a shot one more time. That was politically correct, right? That was pretty good. Yeah.
Good job. You spun that one really, really well.
Clayton, just with your foundation, training for baseball, being a father of four, I think a lot of men in this room, when they take time to be quiet and let the Holy Spirit speak through them to affect other areas of your life, what have you kind of found throughout your career and all the things you have going on is the best time of the day or the best way that you kind of receive the Lord to speak to you and kind of time to quiet? I was kind of thinking about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. You just kind of asked me how I find time throughout the day to, be in prayer, talk to Jesus, or try to figure out how best to use the gifts that God has given me. And I think I basically have two different schedules, right? Like I play baseball, and then I come home, and I'm a stay-at-home dad, basically, right? So it changes for me throughout the years. But I will say, going on the road in baseball is a pretty cool opportunity in and of itself, because you get some time alone, but you also have a group of men that are alone as well for the most part. And so to be able to get together with them, and we've done some different Bible studies and different things to talk, but and it's usually not at normal times. It's usually like 12:30, 1, 2 in the morning, because that's kind of our time to ourselves. And I think that it is special for me to see these guys, first of all, take the effort to do that, and then to go into a hotel room or go to a hotel lobby or whatever it is, and be able to talk about Jesus and things like that. So we do that, and that's kind of my time as well after the games. And it's not as consistent as probably it should be, or I'd like to, but I think that is a really cool thing that Jesus has in my life for me.
Maybe one more? Okay.
Hey, Clayton, I know you touched on it a lot, but I'm just curious. I know a lot of us are in business, we're not professional pitchers like yourself, but how do you, being a Christian, going through the big leagues, and how do you kind of balance that, using your Christianity, being on the Dodgers, and coming up through that? How do you balance that, in the work world with Christianity?
Yeah, he kind of asked me just how to, the differentiation between trying to be a Christian and also a baseball player, and how you use that in my job. And I don't think that's any different between whether you're the CEO of a company, or whether you work in the church, or whether you're a baseball player. I think we're all called to where we are. And so, there's the best analogy that I heard in Sunday school one time is that, there's a pie chart, right, where you have different chunks of your day. And you try to put Jesus as that little sliver, and it's probably going to get eaten up by the rest of your day with all that you have going on. But if you make Jesus a part of everything in that pie chart, about every percentage, he immediately becomes this focal point of your life. And so I think that's how I do it. I think baseball, we're there every day. We practice every day. We do the same things every day. And just like in a business world, you go to work every day. But how you use Jesus in your life to impact others, that's a daily thing. That's every minute. And that's from also putting yourself out there, right? That's a big step as a Christian to say, hey, I'm believing Jesus. And so your actions are immediately being questioned and critiqued just based on how you act and how you do things and how you treat other people. And I think that one of the cooler things is when people ask me about my faith, or when I try to, help them, like, what does it mean to be a Christian? I tell them the greatest commandment, right? Love God and love others. And that's so simple, yet it encompasses so much in our lives. And when they hear that, that's like, okay, Jesus is our Lord, and love other people the way he would do it. And that's, people can wrap their head around that. And sometimes when things are hard for me, or I struggle, like going back to something as simple as that really helps my faith.
Very good. Tom, back to you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.